Hello everyone and welcome to Plot Twists. So today I'm going to do my October wrap-up. Over the course of October I've only managed to read 4 books, but considering that I finished 2 books the day before October started, I feel like that's somewhat to be expected. So let's dive right in. The first book that I finished in the month of October is City of Miracles by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the final book in the City of Stairs trilogy. This book centers around the main character, Sigurd Harkvaldsson, who, from if you read the first book, is Shara Comate's assistant. And this centers around his struggles with his daughter's death and his exile from his country, but it also reconnects him to Shara's daughter, which we find out exists at the end of City of Blades. And boy, was this book hard to read. It was beautifully written. It was a wonderful story, but it was emotionally draining at every turn. And his reactions to things, I feel like in the first book he comes off as almost like an inhuman type character because he's so serious and strong and whatnot, and just watching his emotional reactions to things in this book broke my heart multiple times. And there's definitely a point near the end where I was in full-blown tears because it was so good but so hard to read. So definitely a book that you want to go into knowing that it's going to be emotionally draining, but it was beautiful. Highly recommend. I rated this 5 out of 5 stars. The second book that I read during the month of October is the Hocus Pocus sequel by A.W. Jantha. This book was picked up for me because somebody that I love dearly knows that I love Hocus Pocus, which I do. It's definitely the first movie I want to watch every October, and we definitely watch it more than once before the end of the season. And there's never enough of it. So reading about it to get more of the story, I was super excited to do. So, in general, I expected this book to be a little campy and expected and, you know, a movie-to-book sequel. But some things that actually made this book more interesting than I expected. This is actually based on a screenplay that was written by the original screenwriter of Hocus Pocus and was intended to be a movie sequel that did not get picked up and instead got turned into a book. So, this, I feel like, has a lot of intense sequel properties that most book sequels to movies don't have. In addition to that, as expected, it centers around Max and Allison's children, and, you know, their Aunt Danny and their relations. And in the beginning of this book, the Sanderson sisters obviously come back as expected and do so by sending Max, Danny, and Allison to take their place in hell. And they come back to do what they said to do in the first movie, which is, you know, set out eternal life. So I'm going to do an actual full book review on this book just because there were some things that I really, really want to talk about. But overall, this was a surprisingly good read. I expected it to be good. I did not expect it to be great. I actually ranked this 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read in the month of October is Alison Zombieland by Gena Showalter. This book centers around our main character, Alice. And in the beginning of the story, Alice's family is attacked in their car on the way home one night and attacked by zombies. And the remaining members of her family die, so she goes to live with her grandparents. And this book centers around her struggles with the fact that her family has just died, but also she saw the zombies that night and thought she was crazy. But then she continues to see these zombies. And this kind of centers around her beginnings to become a zombie hunter. It also has a really good, or I don't know about good, it has a really enjoyable to read YA love triangle between herself, a character that she knows she shouldn't be into, and a character that seems like somebody that would be a good match for her. And as the story develops, you find out that these two boys are on opposite sides of this conflict, and she obviously picks a side. So in general, this was a really slow book to start. By the end of it, I was so wrapped up that I am going to pick up the second one and continue to read it. But I would say over half of this book, I was like, oh my God, is anything ever going to happen? So I did rate this 4 stars because the ending is really good and definitely picked up, and I was interested in reading it. But because the beginning was so slow, there's no way that I could rate this 5 out of 5 stars. So 4 stars. And the last book that I read in the month of October is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. This was described to me as a Harry Potter fan fiction, which, having done more research, that's literally exactly what it is. But man, oh man, was this enjoyable to read. And not necessarily because the main character of Simon Snow is super interesting in any way, shape, or form, but the Malfoy equivalent character in this story, Baz, is so enjoyable to read. And he has easily some of the most unexpected parts of this book that make it wonderful. This story centers around your main character, Simon Snow, who is your Harry Potter character, going to school at the Watford Magical School, and his conflict with the insidious humdrum, I think that's what they call him, your Voldemort-esque character. And then he gets support from the mage, who is your Dumbledore type character, or at least that's what it seems at the beginning. This book has some great plot twists that I did not see coming in any way, shape, or form. And to be honest, by the end of it, I'm kind of confused on how there can be a second book, because I feel like this wraps up the story very nicely. But I guess there is a second one. I did actually order that from Book of the Month this month, so I will most definitely be reading this as soon as it gets here. Reading the sequel as soon as it gets here. But overall, this was a wonderful read. It does have a pretty strong LGBT romance, which was super cool. Actually, 2 of the books that I read this month had LGBT romances, which is something I really enjoy reading in books. Representation is important, and the more books that I can support that have representation, the better. But overall, back to this book. Loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. Was great. Could not recommend enough. And I will definitely be picking up the sequel. And I'm actually really interested in reading Fangirl to figure out to see if there's like some extra information about it, where the motivations come from, where her ideas from the characters come from, and that kind of thing. So, yeah, 5 stars. So those are the 4 books that I read during the month of October. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe. I try to post videos at least once a week, sometimes twice. There will definitely be 2 videos coming next week. And thanks for watching. Bye.